As Reverend Wendy completes her series on Deepak Chopra's book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Reverend Wendy talks about the Law of Dharma. Dharma is a Sanskrit word that reflects the idea of one's purpose in life. Reverend Wendy discusses that the purpose of life includes the idea that each of us is here to discover and express our divinity.
So, these 7 weeks have gone by quickly. At least from my point of view, they have. We have been exploring together and will be concluding today Deepak Chopra's book, written way back in 1994, called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Today we are going to examine the Law of Dharma. Say that with me. The Law of Dharma. This whole series, in fact the book, is dedicated to discovering a different way of being that brings forth greater abundance and wealth and joy across all the different aspects of our lives. It takes a very broad and I think very holistic approach to this idea of success, that success is about a state of well-being. That success refers to our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, our mental well-being, our relational well-being, our social well-being, and our financial well-being as well. And that there are many different ways to approach experiencing and creating greater success in our life. And for many of us, we have been enculturated in a way that takes an awful lot of effort, that takes a great toll on us, that can be very stressful and very driven. And Deepak, through this work, is suggesting it doesn't have to be like that. That there is a way to experience greater well-being and greater success in our lives, measured across all of those different sectors, that is more like effortless effort. And so each of these different laws have been devoted to helping us be able to do that more consistently and more effectively. Today we are looking at the Law of Dharma, and I really enjoy this particular law because it has to do with our divine purpose. It has to do with the fact that each of us is here by divine appointment. We have signed up for this life experience. Now, there are some days that we are really grateful that we've signed up for this life experience, and some days it seems like we're not so happy that we've signed up for this life experience. But indeed we have, and we are each here called to discover more and more of who and what we really are, and to let that rise to its surface and to be expressed through us. And that in doing that, not only will we improve the quality of our life for ourselves, but we have the opportunity to make a significant difference in the lives of those around us. I want to begin with some words from a favorite book of mine. It's been a favorite for many, many years. It was written by Khalil Gibran. It's a book of poetry, and I'm not one who ordinarily likes a lot of poetry, but I really like the work of Khalil Gibran, and I in particular like his book, The Prophet. And here are some words on the idea of work in that book. He writes, "When you work, you are a flute, through whose heart the whispering of the hours turns to music. And what is it to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth." When we look at Dharma, we're looking at divine purpose, we're looking at our path, and it often involves the actual work that we do in the world. Gibran is saying that when we work, we are a flute, through whose heart the whispering of the hours turns to music. It's a beautiful visual. When I think of a flute, I think of something very open, very clear, through which the wind can blow through easily, the breath can blow through easily, and create beautiful music. And what is it to work with love? Reminded of the teaching in the New Testament that we are to do it all, whatever the all is. We are to do it all as if we were doing it for God. And boy, when we do that, when we do it all as if we were doing it for God, when we work with love, the work that we bring forth is qualitatively different than it would be absent doing it as if we were doing it for God, doing it without love. It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. When we understand the law of Dharma, and when we discover our path, our Dharma, our essence, it will be as if we are weaving a cloth that our beloved shall wear. It will be as if we have touched the experience of magic. Dharma is a Sanskrit word that means purpose in life. And this law suggests that we have taken manifestation in physical form to fulfill that purpose. Let me repeat that. We have taken manifestation in physical form to fulfill that purpose. And when we are fulfilling that purpose, our life works in magical ways. And when we're not fulfilling that purpose, when we either do not know what that purpose is, or we turn away from that purpose, the magic seems to go out, and life seems to become much more arduous and much more of a stressful, driven kind of experience. I enjoyed the part in the book where Deepak describes how he taught this to his children. He taught them to meditate, but he also taught them that they were here for a purpose and that they needed to really devote quality time and attention to discovering that purpose. This is what he writes about it. I never ever want you to worry about making a living. If you're unable to make a living when you grow up, I'll provide for you. Now, I'm not so sure I agree with that last part. I do think there comes a point, if we have done a good job as parents, that we should not have to be providing for our kids, okay? So I like a lot of what he writes. I don't agree with everything that he writes, just like you don't agree with everything I say from up here, and that's good. We want to keep our own individuality and our own minds engaged. But he says, I never ever want you to worry about making a living. If you're unable to make a living when you grow up, I'll provide for you. This I agree with completely. I don't want you to focus on doing well in school. I don't want you to focus on getting the best grades or going to the best colleges. What I really want you to focus on is asking yourself, how can you serve humanity? And asking yourself what your unique talents are, because you have a unique talent that no one else has, and you have a special way of expressing that talent, and no one else has it. Wouldn't you love for every single young person in the world to be raised with that? Yes, yes, every single young person in the world to be raised with that, to be raised knowing that there's something special about them, something unique about them, something within them that they need to discover that will make their lives thrive and be of a benefit to all of humanity, that they are a unique expression of the divine. Don't you think we'd have a much happier world? Yeah. A much more beautiful world? A much more abundant world? A much more safe world? A much more verdant world? A much more loving world? Absolutely. Absolutely. In many ways, I think unity and the science of mind and our New Thought teachings have done a really good job in helping to heal the unworthiness that many people who have grown up in religions have taken on. You know, in many ways, the church, I believe, has done a serious disservice to its people. It does no good whatsoever to tell people that they are miserable sinners, worms in the dust, unworthy of thy good fortune. That does no good. To push someone down or to make someone feel less than does not inspire them to become what they can be. We inspire each other to become what we can be by first and foremost remembering that each one of us is an expression of the divine. Each one of us was born right the first time. Each one of us is unique and talented and special. It doesn't mean that each one of us has taken the time or has been in an environment that has encouraged us to look for and to discover that about ourselves. And for many of us, it lies dormant or hidden. And for many of us, even as adults, we are still in the process of trying to get clear on what that is. This idea of Dharma, this idea of our divine purpose, I think is too often confused with our work, our job in the world. And I want to differentiate that a little bit here, because this idea of Dharma, this idea of purpose, I think is really important for each of us to get. And when we get that, when we understand what that is for ourselves, and then we begin to allow that to express and to celebrate that in ourselves, we will find that our life works a whole lot better. Don't you want your life to work better? Yeah, me too. Me too. I want my life to work better. And you know what? I want your life to work better as well. That's enlightened selfishness. When your life works better, it's better for all of us. It really is. Deepak suggests that there are 3 components to the law of Dharma. I'll tell you what they are, and then I will talk about them. The first one, he says, is each of us is here to discover our higher self and express our divinity. Secondly, he says we all have a unique talent to express. When you're expressing that unique talent, you lose track of time. And third, service to humanity and asking how can I help is critical as a component to the law of Dharma. So the first one, each of us is here to discover our higher self and express our divinity. To discover our higher self and express our divinity. Don't you love to respond to that which is highest and best in you? Don't you find it really painful and discouraging when somebody insists on holding you hostage to the worst mistake you've ever made in your life? Yes. Have you made mistakes? Yes. Oh, we need to be more honest. Yeah, we have. We all have. Big ones, many of them. But are you your mistakes? No. And have you learned from them? Probably. Probably. If you mined them for gold, then you definitely have learned from them. But you're not your mistakes. You're not the worst thing that you've ever done. There is that higher self, the God self, the divine in you. And I know that when I choose to look at you and see you as holy and sacred and divine, you come alive to me in a way that is magical. And when you choose to look at me that way and hold that about me, I am inspired to be my better self. But when you hold me hostage to my past, or you tell me that I'm unworthy, or I'm a sinner, or I'm miserable, or I don't deserve, I feel crushed. I feel demoralized. You know, today is Palm Sunday, and our teacher and way shower in unity has always been and continues to be Jesus the Christ. And Jesus the Christ, more than anything, was a teacher. And more than anything, he taught consciousness. And more than anything, he looked at and saw the divinity in everyone around him. And as a teacher, he forever said, it used to be said, it used to be taught, blah, 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 but I say to you, not that, this. And every time he contrasted what used to be done with what he was saying today, he was speaking from his higher self to our higher self and was inviting us to evolve and grow in awareness and consciousness. He was inviting us to step upward and onward and forward along our path of Dharma. I've always been inspired by the transcendentalists, and Emerson in particular. And this one quote speaks so clearly to this idea of that which is within each and every one of us. When Emerson said, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. What lies behind us, what lies before us, are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. There is a God or goddess within each and every one of us, just waiting to be birthed into full expression. Will you help to birth that in the people around you? Yeah? Are you serious? Yes. All right, you want a homework assignment? Let's see how you respond to this compared to first service. Okay? There is a God or goddess in potential in each and every one of us, ourselves included. So now I want you to think of the one person in your life that really gets under your skin. I want you to think of the sandpaper to your soul. And if you're struggling, think of all your exes. Ex-spouses, ex-bosses, ex-friends, whatever, the list of exes. And the very next time you think about that person, or the very next time your path crosses with that person, or you get an email from that person, or you get a phone call from that person, or a text from that person, you're to say to yourself, this is a God or goddess in disguise. And I'm going to keep looking until I see at least a tiny shred of evidence of that God or goddess. Can you do it? Yes. Oh, you are better than, I better not say that. You responded more enthusiastically than first service. Okay, the second component. He says we all have a unique talent to express. When you're expressing that unique talent, you lose track of time. I want to nuance this a little bit because I think that talent and sometimes job get dumped into this idea of dharma or this idea of divine purpose. And I think that there is a difference between the form and the essence. Our job is the form, or can be the form. The actual physical work that we do in the world, whatever job we have, is the form. And that form may or may not be directly linked to the essence. To me, the essence is the Dharma. What do I mean by that? I said a moment ago that Jesus, more than anything else, was a teacher. I believe his Dharma was to teach, and to teach radical consciousness, and to teach everywhere that he could, no matter the consequences, and those consequences were pretty darn serious. For us, we want to look more deeply at what is the essence of our calling? What is the essence of our natural giftedness in the world? Are we, by nature, whether our job title includes it or not, are we by nature a teacher? Are we by nature a healer? Are we by nature a helper? Are we by nature a creator? Are we by nature an inventor? Are we by nature a collaborator? You getting a feel for this? Are we by nature a leader? We can be, by nature, naturally, intrinsically, any of those things without necessarily ever having a form that directly links to that thing. Is this making sense? Yes. Okay. When we peel back the layers of ourselves and look more deeply to discover what that is about us, am I naturally, almost automatically, without even thinking about it, a teacher or a healer or a collaborator or any of the other possibilities I suggested? When we know what that is, we can look for ways to bring more of that, our Dharma, into whatever form we are actually operating through. Sometimes when people hear a New Thought message on finding your divine purpose, they look at the work that they're doing in the world and they say, well, clearly that's not it. And they go quit their job And some people can pull that off. And for others, it's too quick a reaction and not at all a real thought through and felt through process. Because it could be that the form doesn't even have to change, but the way you hold yourself within that form is what changes. It was some time before I discovered a couple of the things that I know to be absolutely true of me in terms of my Dharma. And one very strong aspect I know of my Dharma is teacher. And if I look back, I've always done that. Even as a kid, I did that. Even as an ice skater, I did that. The teacher in me shows up whenever I am called to do something, whether it is with a microphone or not. If there's a problem, it's the teacher in me that shows up. What is it that is absolutely true about you? Who in you shows up naturally and automatically? You know, a healer can show up in the form of a public teacher. A healer can show up in the form of a musician. A healer can show up in the form of someone who physically builds things. You see, the form is less important than the essence. That's what's important. That's the Dharma. And when you understand what that is about yourself, first of all, you are honoring yourself. And when you are honoring yourself and you know that that's what you are, then you can more consciously bring that into whatever form it is that you are living through. And that's when magic starts to happen. And if by chance the form is totally unsuitable, you'll then know what kind of form to look for. Is this making sense? You need me to be living out of my Dharma, and I need you to be living out of yours. When I am living out of my Dharma, I am going to be absolutely, naturally and authentically the best version of me that I can possibly be. And the absolute same is true of you. Our Dharma is not identical, and certainly the forms that our Dharma takes can be very, very varied. But don't look for it and don't find it, and you will never be as happy or successful as you possibly can be. Then the third thing that Deepak says is that as a component to the law of Dharma is that service to humanity, living from the heart space of how can I help, is essential. For you see, our Dharma is meant to be a blessing not just to us, but to others as well. We're given these gifts, whatever the gift is, and we're expected to hone that gift. We're expected to develop it. We're expected to, I'm going to use the word perfect, but not perfect as in an end result, not as a noun, but as a verb. To perfect it, to nuance it, to improve it, to better it, so that we better ourselves. And so that we can give that gift to a world that desperately needs it. Chopra says that it is the ego that lives from the space of what's in it for me. But it is the spiritual self that asks the question, what's in me for you? What's in me for us? Where and how am I being called to serve? Can you feel into what a different kind of life qualitatively this would be if we lived from this space? Can you imagine if we really made it our responsibility to find one young person in our life, a niece, a nephew, a neighbor child, and really nurture them in this kind of idea? be the voice for them, the mirror for them of what we see as natural about them. You know, it shows up very early in life. Somebody was asking me this morning, saying, well, I think I have a whole lot of these. I think all of these are my Dharma. And I said, you know, I'm going to challenge you on that. We can learn to do many things. And I suspect that as a group of New Thought people who are already motivated by personal growth and development, that we've done a fair amount of work on ourselves already. Am I right? Right. And we've probably developed a lot of different abilities and skills, and that's good. What my challenge is to say that there are probably just one or two things that are really the deepest and strongest and most natural in you. And those are the ones that you really, really want to pay attention to. And if you're having challenge knowing what that is, here are two things you can do. You could ask someone whose opinion and insight you value, someone who knows you and who's known you across a period of time, what is it that they see in you? You may have to educate them a little bit to these kinds of qualities I was talking about, the kind of the list I rattled off to you. And it's not an exhaustive list, but it does include some of the most common ones. So that's one place you can turn to if you're struggling. And the other could be to actually flip back in your mind to when you were a kid. What were you criticized for? So I said that what I know to be true for me is two, teacher. But the very first one came out of criticism growing up. For me, it's teacher and it's leader. And it doesn't matter where I am, even not intending to, even wanting to stay more invisible, those two things always show up in and through me. They are my Dharma. But growing up, I was told, you're too bossy. Anybody else told, you're too bossy, you're too much. Boy, and don't be a girl doing that in the 60s and the 70s, right? You know, be quiet, kind of invisible, or you'll never get married. Some of you got that same message from family or maybe from society. But look, another hint before I wrap this up is sometimes, in fact, I think almost most of the time, our Dharma, our natural giftedness, goes unnoticed by us because it is so natural. It's so who we are that we just automatically think, well, everybody's like that. My husband is an absolute helper and supporter. It does not matter where he is, what he's doing. He is absolutely that, but he doesn't even notice it. Doesn't even notice it because it's so who and what he is. So look that way as well. I hope some of this is making sense. I hope you're catching my personal passion around the idea of the law of Dharma. I absolutely know life from relationally, mentally, emotionally, and financially works so much better when you know what your Dharma is. You honor it and celebrate it in yourself, and you allow it to rise to the surface. Then you will be your best self, and you will be making your lasting contribution to wherever you are planted in this beautiful tapestry that we call the human family. Namaste and God bless.